Hi, I'm Femi OK. Today on the stream, we are going to focus on the latest series of attacks on Muslims in India. Some of the accounts you will hear are disturbing, so you may decide that this show is not for you. We start our discussion with Aparna Bose, who's a journalist.
There has been significant rise in communal violence and attacks against religious minorities across India in the last few years. Jahangirpuri violence in New Delhi is the latest out of them. What's worrying is the lack of principle of neutrality on the side of the authorities, because instead of punishing the perpetrators equally, we have seen that the states are having selective approach towards these sort of incidents. And because of this reason, the religious minorities, particularly those who have been hit by the recent spate of violence, share that they feel unsafe in this country.
How seriously are officials in India taking the violence that's targeted at India's minority Muslim communities? Let's have a listen to our guests who are joining us. They will have their own takes. Arthur, Kavita, Vikram, so good to have you here on the stream. Arthur, please introduce yourself to our international audience. Tell them who you are and what you do.
Hi, my name is Arfa Khanam Sherwani. I work as a senior editor with a news portal called thewire.in. It is India's largest digital platform. I have been a journalist reporting on politics for the past 20 years. I have been living and working out of New Delhi, especially reporting on politics, policy, and issues of Indian minorities, more specifically Muslims.
Good to have you on board in our discussion. Hello, Kavita. Welcome to the stream. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Kavita Krishnan, and I'm a communist feminist activist. I'm a Politburo member of the Communist Party of India Marxist-Leninist Liberation, that's CPIML Liberation, and I'm also the secretary of the All India Progressive Women's Association.
And Vikram, welcome to the stream. Please introduce yourself to the audience, tell them who you are and what you do.
Thank you very much. I'm Dr. Vikram Singh, former Indian Police Service Officer, Director General of Police Uttar Pradesh, and currently Chancellor, Noida International University, guiding PhD scholars taking classes of environment, criminal jurisprudence, and other allied subjects. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guests. So you have met our panel. If you're on YouTube, I know YouTube is very busy right now. The comment section is for you. Your comments, your questions, be part of today's discussion. I'm going to start in New Delhi in April. So Arthur, I'm going to ask you to have a look at this video and tell me your thoughts. I want to know what kind of attacks are happening and when. So this is a procession, a Hindu procession that went past a mosque, and the Muslims in the mosque reported that this is what happened to them. Is this typical? Let's have a look. Let's have a listen.
Yesterday, the rally came out 3 times. It was not a rally, but a threat in a way. I will call it a procession of violence. They were brandishing swords and knives and chanting slogans, "Long live Ram." You cannot call it a rally because there used to be rallies when there has been brotherhood amongst us. When they reached near the mosque, they started shouting, "If you want to stay in India, you will have to chant Ram Ram or go to Pakistan." Remove the mic from the mosque, close the meat shops. There were some boys who couldn't tolerate this, and God knows what happened. Why were they brandishing swords? What was the need?
Arthur, I ask you about this because you are based in New Delhi. That procession was in New Delhi. That violence happened quite recently. Are we seeing an increase in attacks on Muslims? Is this unusual?
This is unusual, but at the same time, very usual, I would say. But let me just talk about this particular rally. And this particular rally, the third one, this gentleman is referring to, it is by Delhi police. They've said that this was illegal. And still, you know, these people, they carried out this rally. So what is happening right now in India is completely unprecedented. I mean, Femi, I have not seen it in the last 20 years of my career. And people who are older than me, they are saying that since the time of independence and since the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi in 1948, these are perhaps the most serious, more grim times, and maybe the most serious challenge to Indian democracy and Indian secularism that we are facing. So this pattern is very clear. This gentleman, what he's trying to say here is that what happens is that the Hindu festivals, which used to be earlier an occasion for the communities, different religious communities, to come together and celebrate, now they are weaponizing those very festivals, we saw it first in Madhya Pradesh, which is a central state in India, that there a group of people, they were passing by Muslim localities, and that is deliberate. Let me tell you, this is not some innocent religious processions that are going on. They make sure that they go there, they provoke them. The songs that they are playing are outrightly insulting to Muslims in general, Muslim women in particular. In fact, if this is not enough, there are young Hindu boys who are dancing to the tunes of songs where they're outrightly abusing Muslims. So basically, they're so drunk on hate that they are dancing to the songs which are hateful, literally abusing Muslim slurs. And then what happens is that they wait for a minimum reaction from the Muslim community. When there is a minimum reaction, like say if a couple of people are throwing stones or something, then the police comes in, arrests those people who reacted to that bullying and provocation and insults. And if this is not enough, what happens is then the state comes in with all its power, with its bulldozers, and demolishes the houses and shops of Muslims. So if we are trying to convey here that this is some kind of a communal violence, I would say India has had a history of communal violence, but what we are witnessing right now is no short of state persecutions of Indian Muslims.
I was very careful not to use that phrase, communal violence. I want to put a couple of ideas to you, Vikram. Arthur says people are drunk on hate. Very grim, serious time in India right now for the Muslim minority. As somebody who has deep experience in the police force in Uttar Pradesh, you're Director General of the police force there. How are you seeing this? I'm going to say it's an uptick in violence, but you can tell me how you see it. What's going on? And what kind of attacks are you seeing?
Femi, it's very painful to see this communal disturbance because I would rather say all the legal ingredients of communal violence are there. And the ineptitude and the inefficiency displayed, I have never seen something like this ever. And when I say that the permission was not granted, as Arifa has mentioned, that if a permission is not granted, it is the job of the police to ensure that the procession is not taken out. There should be absolutely no arms. Even the slogans that are chanted during the course of the procession. Ram Navami is one of the most peaceful festivals in the country. And to have this kind of mayhem and violence is absolutely unacceptable. Now it was the job of the police to regulate the procession. If there's no precedence of such a procession, it should not have been allowed. And of course, no weapons, no incendiary and no provocative slogans. Then when you go before a mosque, it is the job of the police to ensure that the procession moves away fast. And if there is a namaz, that is the Muslim prayers that is going on, and the imam is reciting the khutbah, that is the sermon, that khutbah should not be interrupted or disrupted by loud music, sloganeering, etc. And the police should jolly well ensure that the procession passes off the mosque. And that is the time the police should act as a buffer with respectable people from both the communities trying to act as a buffer so that there is no disturbance. Now, if the procession has weapons, it is unacceptable. If they are provocative slogans, it is unacceptable. If the rooftops have petrol bombs, weapons and brickbats, it is unacceptable. I would say that I am very disappointed at the inefficiency of the local police, and not only the Delhi police, at Khargaon, at Karauli and elsewhere. These riots have not happened just in Jahangirabad or in Rajasthan. They have happened at 10 places, adding Jahangirpuri, and they have added to 12 communal riots. It is not one. And the pattern and the basic foundation appears to be the same. It seems that they are working on a particular plot, a particular scheme. And I had expected a lot more from the law enforcement agencies.
All right, so...
Can I...
Yeah, Kavita, go ahead, please.
I agree with Vikram Singhji's assessment of the illegality of the procession, but I would not agree with his use of the word inefficiency, because I think that what we're seeing here is a pattern on part of the state machinery, the police in particular, to act with bias, which is what your journalist who spoke from the PTI before your panel came on, she also pointed to that you're having the police, and this is not the first time this is happening. So you have seen other instances in which in 2020, for instance, during Donald Trump's visit to India, there was targeted violence against Muslim minorities. And over there, the arrests have been by the Delhi police. And Delhi police, remember, is not a state police. It comes directly under the Modi regime, under Narendra Modi. Modi's right-hand man, Amit Shah, who is the Home Minister. So the Delhi police overwhelmingly arrested Muslims, and not just under laws, ordinary laws. It arrested them under draconian anti-terror laws. So it invokes these anti-terror laws, and under which it is virtually impossible to get bail, which means that people remain in prison for years on end without bail. Whereas Hindu supremacists, who routinely, every day you come across instances of them giving calls to rape Muslim women, calls to kill all Muslims, they are announcing their plans to replace India's secular constitution, make India into a Hindu supremacist nation. They're saying they're conspiring for this, we are going to do violence for this, and yet they are never booked under, they are never charged by the police under the section which says, you're trying to overthrow the state. Those sections are almost reserved for Muslims, or for those who are speaking, those intellectuals and activists who are speaking in support of minorities. And this is a pattern. The other thing I think we haven't talked about enough here is what Arfa mentioned, which is the fact that the state machinery is bringing in all over the country the word bulldozer, which is basically the JCB machine. And since your show is based in London, it's important to remember that this is primarily a British company.
We're in Washington, D.C. My accent is based in London, though, but please continue.
Okay,
I'm going to show a bulldozer in just a moment so you can explain what we're seeing. In fact, Kavita, would you mind if I do this right now? Because I know you will understand the context and it's really important to see this. Let me just play this, because what was happening here was that some Muslim families had their homes bulldozed because, why, Kavita?
This is one of the places where this is happening, but essentially the fig leaf here is that these Muslim families had shops which were encroaching on public property, public land. In other places, they said Muslim homes are encroaching on public land. But that's a fig leaf, because other BJP leaders of the Bharatiya Janata Party, the ruling party, have made public announcements saying wherever there are riot mongers, there the bulldozers will go. And basically riot monger, terrorist, Bangladeshi, Rohingya, these are all terms of hate speech being used by the ruling party to signal that the Muslims not only are encroaching on public land, but that they do not belong in India, that they are responsible for the violence of which they are the victims. So essentially, after a crime where Muslims have been victimized, Muslims are being turned into the accused, and in a completely illegal way, their properties, their homes are being demolished.
Kavita, let me move on a little bit, because our audience also want to talk to you and I want to give them some space to do that. All right, so I hear from you, all three of our guests, their perspective of what is going on, how bad it is in India regarding India's Muslim minority. But what is going to be done about it? I hear the critique, deep critique. Let's push forward. This is Zakia Soman. Zakia belongs to an organisation known as the Indian Muslim Women's Movement. Part of her purpose in life is to try and get citizenship for Muslim women in India. And she goes straight to what she feels is an answer to this dire situation in India right now, not the politicians. Have a listen, have a look.
We are a multi-faith, multicultural society, and we have by and large coexisted peacefully. So it's up to us, the ordinary Indians, to defeat the politics of hate and religious polarization. The ordinary women and men, be they Hindus, Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, we need to speak out against this kind of religious division and bigotry. We need to make those in government accountable. We need to stand up as fellow Indians. We need to stand up for humanity. We need to stand up for peace and justice in our society. We need to stand up to save the soul of our country and to save the civilization that is India.
See, after I see you nodding, Vikram, I also saw you nodding that Indians, ordinary Indians, need to take control. Is that possible? After you start, Vikram, you continue.
I think I only partially agree with what Zakia is saying, that she's saying all of us need to stand up. I would say the victims of this entire violence, they do not have the power. They are so busy saving themselves, saving their skin, saving their lives and their livelihoods, that they do not really have. And they are not party to whatever is happening. I think it is entirely on the shoulders of the Hindu majority. In fact, I recently did a program where I said that it is a 9/11 moment for India's Hindus, where every good Hindu should get up and stand up and get counted and say, you cannot do this in my name. You cannot do this under the name of my religion, on the pretext of saving me, my community, and my religion. So it is that, I would say, it is that significant a moment. But besides that, what Zakia was saying is that how we can come out of this, I would say I do not really see. I mean, there's only tunnel. I do not see a light at the end of the tunnel because we are still inside the tunnel.
Yeah, you don't see how this can be dealt with. Let me go to Vikram though. Vikram, when Zakia says it's the Indian people can solve this challenge. Your thoughts about how does India get out of this incredibly tense situation it is in right now with its minorities?
I would say that I salute Zakia for the profound words of wisdom that she has just said. And I would say that every Indian has today to make a principled stand. I have seen days which were much worse, but today there's hope, even in the present context, presuming that there's allegation and counter allegations. The Supreme Court, the highest court in the country, is seized of the matter. And if there is any misdemeanor or anyone crossing the line, rest assured there will be consequences for the police force, for the people, and for everybody. But yes, as Arfa and Zakia ma'am have mentioned, that every Indian has to take a stand and have a no-nonsense approach that India is for all Indians. India belongs to everyone. The constitutional authority and the constitutional
there's the Constitution, Vikram, and then there's reality. Oh, right, yes. Because if the Constitution was adhered to, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. Kavita, go ahead.
That's exactly the problem. See, Vikram just mentioned the Supreme Court and India's courts. The problem is that the degree of bias basically goes to the courts as well. For instance, one of the most Islamophobic state exercises that has taken place in recent years in India was the National Register of Citizens exercise that took place in Assam, where basically every citizen was forced to provide documentation to prove they were citizens, or else they were declared, suspect, that their citizenship was declared suspect. And the whole campaign specifically targeted linguistic and religious minorities in Assam. So the Bengalis, Muslims who are of Bengali-speaking origin were suspected of being Bangladeshi and so on. Now, the problem is that the Supreme Court itself oversaw that entire exercise, which resulted in enormous human rights violations on a scale of, on a massive scale, and that is an ongoing thing, for which the Supreme Court's answer is to basically shrug and say, oh, well, that's the law. The Supreme Court itself has allowed Rohingya refugees in India, smallest, there's a few thousand of them in India. These are a stateless community fleeing Myanmar, where they are not allowed to have citizenship.
Let me just ask you this.
They are in India, they are being targeted and deported in violation of Indian law.
Because Arfa says she does not see light at the end of the tunnel. Kavita, hold tight for a moment. Kavita can't hear me. Hold tight for a moment. Arfa says she does not see light at the end of the tunnel. She does not see how do you address this dire situation right now that India is in. Are you saying the same? Let me move on. I'm going to bring in Vikram again. Vikram, I want you to listen to a Hindu priest who was arrested earlier this month. He's from Uttar Pradesh, and you know that area very well because you were Director General of Police there. He was arrested for hate speech, hateful behaviour, and this is what happened when he came out. This is what he had to say. Have a listen, have a look, and then help me. If the leadership, if your leaders, if your holy men are prejudiced, what do you do about that? Here he is.
देखिए, भगवा के लिए और धर्म के लिए मुझे हजारों बार जेल जाना पड़े तो मैं जेल जाऊंगा, और हजारों हमले झेलना पड़े तो मैं हजारों हमले झेलने के लिए भी तैयार हूं। क्या करेंगे? इतने दिन रहे, आपको पैसा तो कुछ नहीं, कोई गिल्टी नहीं फील करते। हमने अपने धर्म के लिए कहा है और धर्म रक्षा अपनी महिलाओं के लिए कहा है, अपने धर्म के लिए कहा है, और धर्म के लिए मुझे कुछ भी करना पड़े, अपने प्राण भी त्यागना पड़े तो मैं तैयार हूँ। आपको किसी तरह का पश्चाताप? कोई पश्चाताप मुझे अब नहीं है, क्योंकि जो सजा मुझे पानी थी मैं सजा पा चुका हूँ, और मैं अपनी महिलाओं की रक्षा के लिए उस दिन जो कहा मैंने अपनी महिलाओं की रक्षा के लिए कहा, और फिर से मैं कहता हूँ धर्म के लिए मेरा कतरा कतरा कट जाए तो मैं धर्म के लिए उसको कुर्बान करने के लिए तैयार हूँ।
Vikram.
I would say that this degree of violence in the tone and tenor of the person, I would have my own reservations whether this man is holy or unholy. Number one, he has said, I'm prepared to go to jail any number of times. I'm prepared to take any number of assaults. Then the place for him is not the pulpit. The place for him is politics. He would be better suited to go into politics. He is certainly not a holy man. And then the time, place, and circumstance would decide how provocative is what he has said. And in case, I think the police need to run the extra mile and ensure that there is no provocation, irrespective of who is uttering what. Even if he happens to be a so-called holy man, the place for him is behind bars, and his challenge that he's prepared to go multiple times behind the bars, well, let the police not disappoint him if he gives the opportunity.
All right, so often in this conversation, when we're talking about violence against minorities in India, certainly in most recent years, a lot of the responsibility has been laid at the feet of the ruling party, the BJP. Let me just bring in Sayatang Ghosh, who explains what they feel is fueling these attacks. And maybe the answer is in politics if it's not with India's people. Let's have a listen, let's have a look.
Violence against the Muslims in India is increasing for mainly two reasons. First, the ruling regime of India, which is the Bharatiya Janata Party, its ideology belongs to its parent organization, the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, or the RSS, which believes that India should become a Hindu nation. For this, they are pushing Hindutva aggressively across India. Secondly, the opposition political parties have abandoned the Muslims because they fear that if they become pro-Muslim, then the Hindu vote share will go down. For this reason, Muslims are being discriminated for what they eat, for their presence, and even for what they wear. The Muslims are being killed and their houses are being demolished in the broad daylight.
Kavita, I'm just going to say as a closing thought, we did invite the BJP to be part of this discussion and they decided that they didn't want to be. It's a difficult conversation for them to have. Do you understand as a member of not one of the main parties, but a political party in India, where does that responsibility lie for the situation we've been talking about today? Is it with the BJP? Can Kavita hear us? We're having connection issues there. Let me move that question along to Arthur.
Oh, well, definitely it does lie with them. But my primary question would be that does the ruling party BJP believe in Indian constitution anymore or not? Because the way they are bulldozing the houses of people, the way they are, behaving is a very partisan way. Even police is the way they are behaving it. It all feels like as if the whole, idea of establishing the rule of law would be on the government of India, on the ruling party. But my primary question here would be, do they believe in Indian constitution or not? Or they are the ones who are breaking the law in broad daylight? Every political and legal expert in this country said these bulldozers and the way police is reacting, at the pretext of the government is illegal, completely illegal. The Supreme Court of India had to intervene in the national capital and stop the bulldozers from raising the houses of Muslims. So we are at a stage where the ruling party, the government is not even pretending anymore. So I am not very hopeful because even a small part of the government does not say that they believe in Indian democracy or
Arthur,
Indian constitution anymore.
So
where do I lie my hopes where?
Yeah, I hear your despair. Arthur, Kavita, Vikram, thank you for taking part in this conversation. On YouTube, some thoughts here. Some of our audience feel that this is the beginning of a potential genocide in India, how seriously they are fueling this. And the Facile says hate politics is on the rise and party in power is playing this card very dangerously. This conversation is not over yet, but for today, for this broadcast, it is. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.